Imagine the sterile hum of hospital lights flickering over my baby's tiny body on the operating table. My heart pounded like a war drum as surgeons prepped for the life-saving procedure, my little one fighting for every breath while I clutched the cold railing alone. Where were my parents? The ones who raised me, who preached family above all. They were sipping mimosas at a bridal brunch, posting selfies with champagne flutes, completely oblivious, or worse, indifferent to their grandchild's crisis. Days later, as I sat by the recovery bed wiping sweat from my forehead, my phone buzzed. A text from Mom. "We need $50,000 for your sister's dream wedding flowers venue, the works. It's her special day." My blood boiled. They skipped the surgery, didn't even call, and now this betrayal twisted like a knife in my gut. I sealed an envelope with a single dollar bill and a note. "This is your priority." But that was just the beginning. What followed was a meticulously plotted revenge that would shatter their facade of perfect parents. Picture the wedding day vows hanging in the air, guests in their finery when suddenly the big screen flickered to life. ER footage, raw, unfiltered, showing empty chairs where they should have been. My parents collapsed in their seats, faces crumpling in horror, as the room froze in stunned silence. If you think that's the peak, hold on. This story spirals into hidden recordings, stolen inheritances, courtroom showdowns, and a sister's ultimate allegiance shift. Shocking twists will leave you gasping humiliations that deliver pure catharsis and a payoff so satisfying you'll cheer for justice served cold. Stick around, you won't believe how far $1 can go in dismantling a toxic empire. I'm Sarah Thompson, 38, a freelance graphic designer scraping by in a small Ohio town, raising my 4-year-old son Noah alone after my ex vanished. Life's been a tightrope, bills piling up my heart tethered to Noah's fragile health, but I've always managed until the day everything broke. The hospital's fluorescent lights buzzed like a swarm of angry bees, casting stark shadows across the waiting room. I sat hunched in a plastic chair, my hands trembling as I clutched a crumpled tissue, the antiseptic smell burning my nose. Noah, my little warrior, was in surgery. His heart, so tiny yet so fierce, needed repair to keep beating. Every tick of the clock felt like a hammer on my chest. I kept glancing at the double doors, expecting them to burst open with news. Any moment a doctor would walk out, tell me he was okay, that I could hold him again. But the doors stayed shut, and so did my world. 2 chairs beside me, reserved for Mom and Dad, sat empty. I'd called them at dawn, voice cracking, begging them to come. "We'll be there. Sarah." Mom had said, her tone clipped like I'd interrupted something. Dad just grunted. "Keep us posted." That was 6 hours ago. No texts, no calls, nothing. I refreshed my phone obsessively, hoping for a message, a sign they cared. Instead, my screen lit up with a notification from Mom's social media. A photo, her and Dad at a rooftop brunch clinking champagne glasses with my sister Emily's future in-laws. Celebrating our girl's big day. The caption read, time-stamped 9:17 a.m., right when Noah's gurney rolled into the operating theater. My stomach churned. They were toasting mimosas while my son fought for his life. I zoomed in on Mom's smile, wide and carefree, her floral dress pristine under the morning sun. Dad's arm was around her, his grin smug like they were stars of some perfect family sitcom. The comments rolled in, gorgeous couple, so excited for Emily's wedding, each one a dagger. I wanted to scream into the void of that waiting room, but all I could do was grip my phone until my knuckles whitened. Noah's surgery was supposed to be routine, but nothing feels routine when it's your child under the knife. The cardiologist had warned me congenital heart defect caught late, high stakes. I'd spent weeks researching, calling specialists, maxing out my credit card for tests. I'd told Mom and Dad every detail, sent them the hospital address, even offered to pay for their gas. They'd promised to be there to hold my hand, to pray with me. But now those empty chairs mocked me. I pictured Noah's tiny body on the table, monitors beeping, surgeons' hands steady but impersonal. He deserved his grandparents there, deserved their love. Instead, they were sipping bubbly, planning a wedding I couldn't even afford to attend. I paced the waiting room, my sneakers squeaking on the linoleum. A nurse offered me coffee, her eyes soft with pity. "Family on their way?" she asked. I nodded, throat tight, unable to admit the truth. The clock read 11:45 a.m. Surgery had started at 9 I checked Mom's profile again. Another post this time, a video of Dad laughing with Emily's fiancé Michael over a tray of pastries. Wedding vibes. Mom's voice chirped in the clip. My hands shook so hard I nearly dropped the phone. This wasn't just absence. It was betrayal, deliberate and cold. I sank into the chair, tears burning my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Noah needed me strong. Hours dragged on, each minute a lifetime. At 2:13 p.m., the surgeon emerged, mask dangling, face unreadable. "He's stable," she said, and my knees buckled with relief. "He's a fighter. You can see him soon." I nodded, choking back a sob, but the victory felt hollow without family to share it. I texted Mom and Dad, "Noah's out of surgery. Stable." "Where are you?" No reply. I sat by Noah's bedside in recovery, his small chest rising and falling, tubes snaking from his arms. He looked so fragile, yet so brave. I stroked his hair, whispering promises I'd keep him safe no matter what. That night alone in my apartment, I scrolled through more of Mom's posts. Another photo of them at a wedding planner's office, swatches of silk and floral samples spread out. The caption gushed about Emily's dream day. My chest tightened. This wasn't new. I remembered Noah's first ER visit at 2 when they'd skipped it for Emily's engagement party. Or the time I needed help with his meds, and they were too busy with a church fundraiser. It wasn't just today, it was a system, a pattern of choosing appearances over us. Their love came with conditions: be convenient, don't need too much, don't outshine Emily's spotlight. I stared at the ceiling, anger simmering into resolve. They thought they could ignore Noah's fight my pain and still expect me to play the dutiful daughter. I wasn't that girl anymore. The next morning, my phone pinged with a new text from Mom. I braced myself, hoping for remorse and explanation, anything. But it wasn't an apology. It was an invoice. "Sarah, we need $50,000 for Emily's wedding. Venue and flowers aren't cheap. Your family, step up." My heart stopped. $50,000. For a party, while I drowned in hospital bills. The audacity lit a fire in me, one that wouldn't burn out easily. The hospital waiting room felt like a cage, its sterile walls closing in as I sat still, reeling from the dollar bill I'd sealed in that envelope. I'm Sarah Thompson, 38, a freelance graphic designer raising my son Noah alone in our small Ohio town. His heart surgery yesterday had shaken me to my core, and the sting of my parents' absence lingered like a bruise. Now, in the aftermath, I was back at the hospital waiting to see Noah in recovery, my mind replaying the betrayal that had pushed me to send that defiant dollar. The surgical wing was a blur of beeping monitors and hushed voices, the air thick with disinfectant and tension. I sat on a hard plastic chair, my hands twisting the strap of my purse, the weight of Noah's condition pressing against my chest. He'd come through the surgery barely, but every moment in that operating room had been a gamble with his fragile heart. I could still picture the empty chairs beside me during those agonizing hours, the ones I'd saved for Mom and Dad. I'd texted them the night before, my voice breaking on the call. "Noah's surgery is at 9 a.m. Please be there." Mom had murmured, "We'll try, honey." Her tone distracted, like she was already halfway out the door. Dad just said, "We're praying." But when the clock struck 9:00 and Noah's gurney rolled away, those chairs stayed cold. I kept glancing at the entrance, hoping, praying they'd rush in breathless with apologies. They never came. The silence was louder than the heart monitor's steady beep, each pulse a reminder of their absence. My phone buzzed, pulling me from the memory. I hesitated, heart lurching. Maybe it was them finally checking on Noah. But it was a notification from Mom's social media, a slap I wasn't ready for. There they were, posted at 9:32 a.m. Yesterday, right as Noah's surgery began. Mom in a pastel sundress. Dad in a crisp polo, clinking glasses at a rooftop brunch with my sister, Emily's future in-laws. The caption read, "Wedding planning in full swing. Cheers to love." The photo showed a spread of croissants, fresh fruit, and champagne flutes, the city skyline sparkling behind them. My stomach twisted. While I was counting Noah's breaths, they were toasting Emily's perfect day. I scrolled through the comments, friends gushing. Such a classy family, and felt bile rise in my throat. I wanted to hurl my phone at the wall, but I just gripped it tighter, my nails digging into my palms. The hospital's waiting area was a mix of hope and despair, other families whispering prayers or clutching coffee cups. A young couple held hands across the room, their faces etched with worry. I envied their togetherness. I'd called Mom again during the surgery, leaving a voicemail that trembled with desperation. "Noah's in now. Where are you?" No response. I'd texted Dad. "Please, he needs you." Nothing. The nurse had noticed my red eyes and asked, "Anyone coming to sit with you?" I'd forced a smile, mumbling, "They're caught up." But the truth burned, they weren't caught up. They'd chosen to be elsewhere, laughing over pastries while my world hung by a thread. I replayed yesterday's scene in my mind. The surgeon's voice had been calm but firm. "Noah's condition is stable, but the next 48 hours are critical." I'd nodded, barely breathing, my eyes fixed on the empty chairs. I'd imagined them filled, Mom squeezing my hand, Dad muttering gruff prayers like he used to when I was a kid. But they were across town, basking in the glow of wedding plans. I checked Mom's profile again, masochistic curiosity driving me. Another post from yesterday, time-stamped 11:15 a.m. A selfie with Emily, both beaming at a floral shop captioned, "Picking the perfect peonies." My heart sank deeper. Noah was still under the knife then, and they were debating flower arrangements. Sitting by Noah's bedside, now I watched his chest rise and fall, his face pale but peaceful under the oxygen mask. He was my everything, and I'd fought for him alone. The realization hit like a wave. This wasn't just one missed moment. It was a pattern woven through years of their selective love. When Noah was 2, they'd skipped his ER visit for croup because Emily's college graduation party was non-negotiable. When I'd begged for help with his medical bills last year, they'd sent $100 and a lecture about budgeting better, while dropping thousands on Emily's engagement dinner. Their affection came with strings: be easy, be quiet, don't ask for too much. Noah's needs. My struggles were always second to their image, their golden child. Emily. Their need to look flawless. I leaned back, the hospital chair creaking under me. Anger simmered not just for yesterday, but for every time they'd chosen appearances over us. I thought of the dollar I'd sent, a spark of defiance that felt insufficient now. They'd crossed a line and I wasn't sure I could forgive it. My phone buzzed again, and I braced myself, hoping for a shred of remorse. But the next time they texted, it wasn't an apology, it was an invoice. The sting of my parents' invoice, $50,000 for Emily's wedding, as if Noah's surgery was a footnote, burned in my chest as I sat in my cramped apartment, the glow of my laptop the only light in the room. I'm Sarah Thompson, 38, a freelance graphic designer, pouring every ounce of myself into keeping my son Noah safe after his heart surgery. The audacity of their demand, fresh on the heels of their absence at the hospital, had ignited something fierce in me. I'd sent that dollar bill as a jab, but now I needed to decide how far I'd take this fight. My phone buzzed on the kitchen counter, Emily's name flashing on the screen. My sister, 2 years older, had always been the golden thread in our family's tapestry. Beautiful, charming, the one who kept the peace when Mom and Dad's expectations crushed me. I loved her, but her role as the family's diplomat often left me feeling like the problem child. I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the answer button. After their brunch stunt during Noah's surgery, I wasn't sure I could stomach another family conversation. But Emily wasn't them. I hit accept, bracing myself. "Sarah. Oh my God, are you okay?" Emily's voice was soft, tinged with worry, but there was an undercurrent of urgency. I heard about Noah's surgery. I'm so sorry I couldn't be there. I was stuck with Mom and Dad at that stupid planner meeting. Her words tumbled out, and I could picture her pacing her pristine condo, her auburn hair tucked behind her ear. Emily was 40, a part-time event coordinator who leaned heavily on our parents' financial support. Their money paid for her car, her rent, her entire lifestyle, a leash I'd cut years ago, but one she couldn't afford to sever. I leaned against the counter, my voice steady but cold. Yeah, Em, he's stable now. But where were Mom and Dad? I called them. They promised. The silence on her end stretched too long. They were busy, she finally said, her tone faltering. You know how they are with the wedding. It's a lot, Sarah. They're stressed. I laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. Stressed? They were drinking mimosas while Noah was under the knife, and now they want $50,000 from me. For your wedding. Emily gasped softly. They asked you for that? I didn't know. I swear I didn't ask them to. The conversation shifted, and I could feel her trying to bridge the gap between us. Sarah, I love Noah. You know that. I'd do anything for him for you. But this wedding, it's my one shot at something perfect. Mom and Dad are covering most of it, and if things go wrong, I can't lose that. Her voice cracked, and I softened, remembering the sister who'd sneak me snacks when Mom sent me to bed without dinner. But her dependence on them grated on me. They skipped Noah's surgery. They didn't even call. And now they're billing me like I owe them. She sighed, heavy and conflicted. I know they're awful sometimes. But please don't make a scene at the wedding. It's in 2 weeks. Just come be there for me. Let's keep it peaceful. I wanted to scream that peace wasn't an option when my son's life was sidelined. But Emily's plea tugged at me. She wasn't the enemy, just caught in the crossfire. I'll think about it, I said, my voice tight. Then, almost as an afterthought, she said something that stopped me cold. You know, I was cleaning out some old boxes last week and I found a letter from Grandma Ellen. She wrote it before she died, saying she left something for us, you, me, any kids we'd have. Like an inheritance for the grandkids. I asked Mom about it once and she just changed the subject, said it was handled. My breath caught. Grandma Ellen, who'd died when I was 20, had been the only one in our family who saw me, who'd slip me $20 for art supplies and tell me to dream big. An inheritance. Why had I never heard of this? What do you mean, handled? I pressed my pulse, quickening. Emily hesitated, her voice dropping. I don't know, Sarah. I was a kid when she passed. Mom and Dad said it was nothing, just some old savings probably used up. I didn't push. Her words hung heavy, a puzzle piece I couldn't place yet. Had they hidden something from us? I filed it away, my mind racing with possibilities. Let's not talk about it now, Emily said quickly, sensing my shift. Just promise you'll come to the wedding. We're sisters. We stick together, right? Her voice was desperate, torn between her love for me and her need for our parents' approval. I stared at Noah's hospital bracelet on the counter, a reminder of what mattered most. Emily wasn't the problem, but she was part of their world, a world that valued image over everything. I'll come, I said finally, my voice low. But if they try to pin this on me, if they lie or twist things, I'm not staying silent. I'm done protecting their facade. Emily exhaled a mix of relief and fear. Okay, just don't hate me, Sarah. Please. I didn't answer, letting the silence speak. I loved her, but love didn't mean blindly agreeing anymore. After we hung up, I sat in the dark, replaying her words about Grandma Ellen's letter. It was a small detail, but it gnawed at me, a crack in the perfect picture my parents painted. They'd buried something, maybe money, maybe truth. I wasn't sure what, but I'd find out. I went to bed, my resolve hardening, but sleep didn't come easily. That night, my phone lit up again. Emily's fiancé, Michael, calling. His voice was steady, almost too calm, and he didn't sound surprised. Michael's voice cut through the quiet of my apartment, his call coming just as I was trying to shake off Emily's plea and that odd mention of Grandma Ellen's letter. I'm Sarah Thompson, 38, a freelance graphic designer navigating life's storms with my son Noah as my anchor. The conversation with Emily had left me unsettled, her dependence on our parents clashing with my growing resolve to confront their favoritism. I answered the phone, my heart pounding. Michael. What's going on, Sarah? We need to talk. He said, his tone measured like a man who'd rehearsed his words. Michael was 42, a successful software engineer with a steady demeanor that complemented Emily's vibrancy. They'd been together for 5 years, and I'd always liked him practical kind, the type who remembered Noah's birthday with thoughtful gifts. But tonight, there was an edge to his voice, a seriousness that made me sit up straighter on the couch. It's about your parents, and the wedding money. I froze, my mind racing. How did he know about the $50,000 demand? I hadn't told Emily the details, just that they'd asked. He didn't wait for my response. They came to me last month, Sarah. Asked for a loan, $20,000, they said, to cover some wedding costs. Venue deposit, I think. They swore it was temporary, that they'd pay me back after selling some stocks. My breath caught. A loan from Michael secretly. They borrowed from you. Does Emily know? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Michael sighed, the sound heavy with regret. No. They made me promise not to tell her. Said it would stress her out, ruin the excitement. But I've been thinking about it, especially after what happened with Noah. It doesn't sit right. I paced the living room, the carpet muffling my steps as he continued. Your mom called me at work, sounded desperate. Emily's dream is at stake, she said. Don't let family drama spoil it. I wired the money that day, but now I see the pattern. They're using everyone. His words hit like puzzle pieces falling into place. My parents, always the manipulators, had gone behind Emily's back to fund her perfect day with borrowed cash. It explained their boldness in asking me for more. They were piecing together a facade on other people's dimes. Why tell me now? I asked, suspicion mingling with gratitude. Michael paused. Because you're family too, Sarah. And after Emily told me about your call tonight, I couldn't stay silent. You deserve to know they're not as put together as they pretend. He offered proof, something concrete to back his claim. I recorded the call, he said, just in case. Hang on, I'll play it. My phone vibrated with an incoming audio file, and I hit play, holding my breath. Mom's voice filled the line, familiar and insistent. Michael, dear, we need that loan quietly. Emily's so excited. Don't tell the bride, it'll just worry her. There it was, undeniable, her words laced with that faux sweetness she used to get her way. Dad's voice murmured in the background, agreeing. The recording ended, and I felt a chill. She said that, don't tell the bride, I repeated, stunned. Michael confirmed word for word. I kept it because something felt off. They've been dropping hints about more money since. The revelation shifted everything. Michael wasn't just Emily's fiancé. He was seeing through my parents' games, perhaps clearer than she could. I'm sorry, Sarah, he added. I should have said no, but I thought it was for Emily. Now I realize it's enabling them. His honesty disarmed me. We talked more, me venting about their history of putting appearances first, him sharing how they'd pressured him on other things like the guest list. They want it grand to impress their friends, he said. But at what cost? I nodded to myself, feeling a spark of alliance. For the first time, I wasn't alone in this. We turned to what came next. We can't let them keep lying, I said, my voice gaining strength. If they deny it at the wedding or push more demands, we expose them. Michael agreed, his practical mind kicking in. Publicly, if needed. During the toasts maybe, or with the DJ's help. We'll have a signal, something subtle like me adjusting my tie twice. Then we play the recording, show the truth. The plan took shape over the call, a strategy born of shared frustration. If they admit it, fine, he said. But if they gaslight or blame you, we go public. Emily deserves to know, and so do the guests. I hesitated, thinking of Emily's tears if it blew up, but Michael reassured me. She'll be hurt, but she'll see. This isn't love, it's control. We refined the details, my heart racing with a mix of fear and empowerment. What if it ruins everything I asked? Michael's response was firm. Better ruined than built on lies. I love Emily, but I won't marry into secrets. His words echoed my own resolve. By the end, we had a pact, an unexpected partnership against the family's toxic core. We agreed on a signal and prayed we wouldn't need it. Hanging up with Michael, our secret signal etched in my mind like a lifeline. I felt a surge of cautious hope amid the chaos of wedding preparations. I'm Sarah Thompson, 38, a freelance graphic designer piecing together stability for Noah and me one day at a time. The alliance with Michael had shifted the balance, turning isolation into strategy, but the days leading to Emily's wedding blurred into a whirlwind of tension and doubt. The call from the bank came unexpectedly a week before the big day, as I sipped coffee at my kitchen table, sketching logos to distract from the family storm. My phone rang with an unfamiliar number, but the caller ID showed First National Bank. I answered. Heart-skipping bills were tight after Noah's hospital stay, and I dreaded more bad news. Ms. Thompson. This is Karen from Fraud Prevention. We've detected unusual activity on an old joint account. Joint account. I frowned, racking my brain. I think you have the wrong person. My accounts are all solo. Karen paused, her voice professional but firm. This is from your college days, opened in 2005 with your mother as co-signer. It's still active under both names. The revelation hit like a cold wave. That account, I'd forgotten it existed. Mom had insisted on co-signing when I started university, saying it was for emergencies, her way of keeping tabs. I'd deposited scholarship money there, used it for books and tuition, but after graduation, I'd opened my own and let that one fade. Or so I thought. What kind of activity? I asked, my voice steadying. Karen explained. Recent withdrawals, small at first, then larger, $500 here, $1,000 there, totaling over $5,000 in the last 6 months. They're flagged as suspicious because the IP address is traced to a location not associated with you. I gripped the phone. Mom's address. She'd been dipping into it quietly without a word. I drove to the bank that afternoon, the Ohio sun mocking my growing fury. The branch was quiet, tellers smiling behind glass. Karen met me in a small office, pulling up the account on her screen. See here, she pointed, scrolling through transactions. Mom's name appeared on every withdrawal, ATM pulls, online transfers, even checks she'd signed. She has full access as co-owner. You never removed her? I shook my head, shame mixing with anger. I trusted her. Thought it was dormant. But it wasn't. Mom had kept it alive, a shadow control from my past, siphoning funds I didn't even know were mine. The balance was low now, but statements showed deposits over the years, interest perhaps, old refunds. She'd treated it like her personal slush fund. As Karen dug deeper at my request, the layers peeled back. There's something else, she said, frowning at a linked document. This account was funded initially from a trust, your grandmother's inheritance fund. My breath caught Emily's casual mention echoing. Grandma Ellen's money meant for us grandkids. The fund was set up in 2004 after her passing. Karen continued printing statements. It was designated for education and family needs of the children, you and your sister. But transfers show money moved to your parents' investment stocks, a vacation property fund. Over $15,000 redirected in the past decade. I stared at the papers, numbers blurring. Meant for us, but used for their gains. Grandma would have hated that. She'd wanted us independent, not pawns. The betrayal deepened. Mom had quietly steered the inheritance, investing it in their retirement dreams, while I struggled with student loans and Noah's care. How could she? I murmured. Karen sympathized. It's common in joint setups, but you can act now. I nodded, resolve hardening. We spent the next hour locking it down. I signed forms to freeze the account, blocking further access. No withdrawals without dual approval, Karen confirmed. Then alerts, email, and text notifications for any attempt. Finally transferring documents I petitioned to remove Mom's name, citing the suspicious activity. "It'll take a few days to process," she said, "but with the fraud flag, it's prioritized." Leaving the bank papers clutched in my hand, I felt empowered, yet violated. Mom's control extended far beyond the wedding demands. This was years of manipulation hidden in bank ledgers. I drove home, mind whirling with implications. That inheritance could have helped with Noah's treatments my business. Instead, it padded their portfolio. I wouldn't confront yet. Timing was key. But knowledge was power. And I had it now. The wedding loomed, rehearsals buzzing with false cheer. I kept my discovery close, watching Mom's smiles for cracks. At 8:02 a.m. on the wedding day, my phone lit up with the bank's number. The bank's call that morning confirming they'd frozen the account and flagged my mother's transactions left me clutching a stack of papers that felt like dynamite. I'm Sarah Thompson, 38, a freelance graphic designer balancing motherhood to Noah with a simmering plan to expose my parents' deceit. With the wedding just a day away, Michael's alliance and the truth about Grandma Ellen's inheritance had armed me with leverage, but I wasn't ready to detonate yet. The rehearsal dinner loomed, and I steeled myself to face the family, my resolve a tight coil beneath a calm facade. The venue was a charming banquet hall draped in fairy lights and soft linens buzzing with the chatter of Emily's wedding party. I arrived in a simple navy dress, Noah at home with a trusted sitter, his recovery steady but fragile. The air smelled of roasted chicken and fresh roses, a mockery of the hospital's antiseptic sting still fresh in my memory. Mom greeted me at the entrance, her smile wide but brittle like a porcelain mask. "Sarah, darling, you made it," she chirped, pulling me into a hug that felt more like a performance. Dad stood beside her, nodding stiffly, his eyes scanning the room for approval. "Good to see you, kid," he said, but his tone lacked warmth, as if my presence was a checkbox on their list. I forced a smile, my pulse quickening as I remembered the bank statements tucked in my purse. Their warmth was a lie, and I was here to play along until the right moment. The dinner unfolded with toasts and clinking glasses, the bridal party giggling over champagne. Emily glowed in a cream dress, her laughter bright but nervous whenever our eyes met. I sat at a corner table, picking at my plate, watching Mom and Dad work the room like seasoned actors. They hugged relatives, complimented the decor, and gushed about our perfect Emily. But their glances my way carried an edge, a silent warning to stay in line. Halfway through the evening, Dad took the microphone for a practice speech, his voice booming with rehearsed sincerity. "As parents, we've always been there for our kids," he said, his hand over his heart. "Emily. Sarah, you've made us proud. We'd do anything to support your dreams." The words landed like a punch. Always there, I thought of Noah's empty hospital chairs, the invoice they'd sent. My jaw clenched, but I stayed silent, aware of every eye in the room. Emily, seated beside Michael, caught my gaze, her face faltering. As Dad droned on about family unity, she excused herself, slipping into a side room. I followed, finding her dabbing her eyes with a napkin. "Sarah, I can't stand this," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Dad's speech, it's all lies. They weren't there for you, for Noah. I saw the posts, the brunch. I'm so sorry." Her tears were real, her guilt raw, but her dependence on them trapped her. I touched her arm, softening despite myself. "It's not your fault, Em. But it's not just this time, it's always been like this." She nodded, wiping her face, trying to recompose for the guests. "Please, just don't ruin tomorrow," she said, echoing our last call. "I need this day." I didn't promise, but I hugged her, feeling the weight of her divided heart. Back in the hall, the mood shifted as the DJ tested equipment, his booth glowing with soft lights. I caught his eye, a young guy named Jake, recommended by Michael. During a break, I approached him, my voice low. "You got the file I sent?" I asked, referring to the audio Michael had shared. Jake nodded, tapping his laptop. "Loaded and ready. Just say when." I glanced at Mom, laughing with an aunt across the room, and felt a surge of defiance. "If things go south tomorrow, you'll know," I said. Michael will signal tie adjustment twice. Jake gave a subtle thumbs up, his expression serious. The backup plan was set a safety net if my parents pushed their lies further. I wasn't planning chaos, but I wouldn't let them rewrite history either. As dessert was served, Mom pulled me aside near the bar, her smile gone. "Sarah, we're counting on you to behave tomorrow," she said, her voice low, eyes sharp. "This is Emily's day. Don't embarrass us in front of everyone." The threat was veiled but clear, her fingers tightening on my arm. I met her gaze unflinching. "Embarrass you?" "Like you embarrassed me at Noah's surgery." Her face twitched, but she doubled down. "That was unavoidable. You're being dramatic." I stepped back, heart pounding. "We'll see about that," I said, turning away before I said too much. The room spun with laughter and music, but a storm was brewing and I was ready for it. Mom leaned in and said, "If you cause a scene tomorrow, we'll make some calls you won't like." Mom's whispered threat at the rehearsal dinner echoed in my ears as I stepped into the wedding venue. Her words, a dark promise hanging over the day. I'm Sarah Thompson, 38, a freelance graphic designer carrying the weight of Noah's recovery and a plan to expose my parents' hypocrisy. The morning had started with a jolt, the bank confirming the freeze on Mom's access to my old account, but I pushed it aside, focusing on the hours ahead. The signal with Michael was set, the DJ primed, and my resolve was ironclad. Today was Emily's wedding, but it was also my reckoning. The venue sparkled under chandeliers, tables draped in ivory linen peonies spilling from centerpieces like a magazine spread. Guests milled about, their laughter a stark contrast to the storm brewing inside me. I adjusted my emerald dress, chosen to blend in but not fade away, and scanned the room. Emily was a vision in her gown, her smile radiant yet strained when our eyes met. Mom and Dad circulated, playing the perfect hosts, their faces all charm for the relatives. But I caught the glances they shot my way, sharp warning me to stay silent. I clutched my purse, the weight of the bank papers inside grounding me, and took my seat near the back, heart pounding. Halfway through the cocktail hour, a commotion erupted near the entrance. The wedding planner, a wiry woman in a headset, rushed to Mom, her face pale. The final venue payment bounced, she hissed loud enough for nearby guests to turn, and the florist's transfer failed too. Mom's smile froze, her eyes darting to Dad, who was already pulling out his phone. "That's impossible," he snapped, voice low but trembling. "We paid everything." The planner shook her head. "The bank rejected it, insufficient funds or a hold. You need to fix this now." Guests whispered, sensing the tension, and I felt a surge of grim satisfaction. The account freeze I'd initiated had hit, and it was unraveling their perfect facade. Dad stormed over, his face red, Mom trailing behind with a forced smile. "Sarah," he growled, pulling me to a corner. "Did you do this?" His accusation was a blade, but I met his gaze, unflinching. "Do what, Dad?" "Pay for your party while Noah's in recovery." Mom's eyes narrowed. "Don't play innocent. You've been meddling, haven't you? Freezing accounts, causing trouble?" I crossed my arms, heart racing but voice calm. "Maybe you should check your own spending habits." Dad's jaw tightened and he leaned closer. "You're ruining Emily's day, you ungrateful." He stopped as a cousin glanced over, but the rage in his eyes was unmistakable. Mom chimed in, her voice sugary but venomous. "We've given you everything, Sarah. How dare you sabotage us?" I stepped back, their words fueling my fire. Guests were starting to notice, their murmurs growing. Emily approached, her face a mix of confusion and panic. "What's going on?" she asked, looking between us. Before I could answer, Dad turned on her, voice low. "Your sister's causing a scene as usual." The lie stung, but I held my tongue, knowing the real blow was coming later. The planner interrupted, insisting they call the bank. Dad fumbled with his phone, his hands shaking, while Mom plastered on a smile for the crowd. "It's just a mix-up," she said loudly, but the cracks in her composure were showing. My phone buzzed relentlessly as I moved to the bar, needing space. Texts flooded in from Mom, then Dad, a barrage of fury and desperation. "How could you do this to your own parents?" Mom wrote. You're tearing this family apart. Dad's messages were harsher. Fix this or you'll regret it. We raised you better. Then a shift to please Sarah. We're family. Don't destroy Emily's day. Call the bank, please. I scrolled through each word, a confirmation of their priorities image over everything. Even Noah. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, anger boiling into clarity. I typed one word: priorities. I hit send, feeling the weight of it land like a stone. The reception hall filled with music guests, taking their seats as the ceremony neared. I spotted Michael across the room, his tie straight, his expression unreadable. We hadn't activated our plan yet, but the failed payments had already shaken the foundation. Emily caught my eye, her face pleading for peace, but I couldn't promise it, not when Mom and Dad were still playing victims. I sipped my water, steadying myself, knowing the truth was a ticking bomb. The toasts were coming, and with them, our signal. I glanced at the DJ, who nodded subtly, his laptop ready. The air felt electric every moment, pulling us closer to a breaking point. Then Mom found me in the bridal suite and locked the door behind her. The click of the bridal suite door locking behind Mom sent a shiver down my spine, her threat from the rehearsal still ringing in my ears as the wedding's chaos swirled outside. I'm Sarah Thompson, 38, a freelance graphic designer. My heart tethered to Noah and a plan that had just begun to unravel my parents' lies. The failed payments had thrown them into a frenzy, their accusations pinning me as the villain, but I stood firm, the weight of Michael's recording and my one-word reply. Priorities burning in my pocket. The bridal suite was a soft oasis of lace and lavender mirrors reflecting the glow of vanity lights, but the air was thick with tension. Mom faced me, her face a mask of controlled fury, her silk dress rustling as she stepped closer. "Sarah, what have you done?" She hissed, her voice low to avoid the ears of guests beyond the door. Her eyes, usually warm for show, were cold, calculating. "You froze our accounts, didn't you? Sabotaging Emily's day to spite us?" I stood by the vanity, my back straight, refusing to flinch. "I didn't touch your accounts, Mom. Maybe your priorities did that for you." Her lips tightened and she took another step, her perfume sharp in the confined space. "Don't play games," she snapped. "You're fabricating this whole drama to force us to pay for the wedding, making us look like monsters. You've always been jealous of Emily." The accusations stung, a deliberate twist of the knife. Jealous I'd spent years cheering Emily's successes, even when it meant swallowing my own struggles. I thought of Noah recovering at home and the empty chairs at his surgery. "Fabricating," I said, my voice steady but edged with fire. "You skipped Noah's surgery for a brunch. You demanded $50,000 while I'm drowning in hospital bills. That's not jealousy, that's truth." Mom's face twitched, a flicker of guilt quickly buried under defiance. "You're exaggerating," she said, waving a hand. "We've always supported you. You're just too selfish to see it. Stop this nonsense or you'll regret it." Her threat was a blade meant to cut me back into submission, but I was done bending. I pulled my phone from my purse, my hands steady despite the adrenaline coursing through me. "You want to talk about truth?" I said, swiping to the audio file Michael had sent. "Let's hear it." Before she could react, I hit play and her own voice filled the room, crisp and unmistakable. "Michael, dear, we need that loan quietly. Emily's so excited, don't tell the bride, it'll just worry her." The recording echoed her words, a confession of deceit borrowing behind Emily's back to prop up their image. Mom's eyes widened, her face draining of color. "Where did you get that?" she demanded, her voice shaking. She lunged for the phone, her manicured nails grazing my wrist as I pulled back. "Turn it off," she snapped, but the audio played on Dad's murmurs in the background, sealing their guilt. I stepped back, holding the phone out of reach, my heart pounding but my resolve unshaken. "You lied to Emily, to Michael, to everyone," I said. "You used them just like you've used me." Mom's panic was palpable now. Her breath quick, her hands trembling as she tried to compose herself. "You don't understand," she stammered. "We were protecting Emily's happiness. You're twisting this." but her excuses crumbled under the weight of her own words looping in the air. I stopped the recording, locking eyes with her. Protecting happiness or protecting your reputation? She opened her mouth to argue, but no words came, her facade cracking like thin ice. Before I could say more, a knock on the door startled us both. The MC's voice boomed through the speaker outside, cheerful and oblivious. "Let's begin with a family message." Mom's head snapped toward the sound, her panic spiking. "Sarah, don't you dare," she whispered, her voice a mix of fear and fury. But I was already moving toward the door. She grabbed my arm, her grip desperate, but I shook her off, my pulse racing. The moment was here, the truth teetering on the edge of exposure. I reached into my purse and passed him the envelope. The MC's announcement. "Let's begin with a family message," boomed through the venue speakers, pulling me from the bridal suite's tension and Mom's desperate grasp. "I'm Sarah Thompson, 38, a freelance graphic designer. My alliance with Michael and the locked account freeze, fueling my steps as I hurried to the reception hall. The confrontation with Mom had ignited the spark, her accusations and panic confirming I couldn't back down. Now the truth had to come out for Noah, for Emily, for me. The hall was packed, guests seated at round tables adorned with flickering candles and elegant place cards, the air scented with fresh lilies. Emily and Michael stood at the head table, her hand in his. Smiles for the crowd, but her eyes searching mine as I slipped in. The MC, a charismatic man in a tuxedo, held the microphone with flair, his voice warm. "We have a special envelope from the family," he said, waving it for all to see. I'd passed it to him moments ago, my heart thumping the $1 bill inside, a symbol of their misplaced values. Guests leaned forward expectant, the room humming with anticipation. Mom and Dad sat rigidly nearby, their faces pale, sensing something amiss. The MC tore open the envelope with dramatic flair, pulling out the $1 bill and the note. "Well, this is interesting," he chuckled, holding it up. A war bill and a note that reads, "This is your priority." Murmurs rippled through the crowd, confusion knitting brows. "What does that mean?" someone whispered. The MC looked puzzled but continued. "From Sarah to her parents, I believe." All eyes turned to Mom and Dad, their smiles frozen. Dad's hand clenched his napkin. Mom's eyes darting to me with fury. Guests shifted, the lighthearted mood cracking as the implications sank in a jab at their demands, their absence. Before the whispers could swell, the big screen behind the head table flickered to life as per Michael's cue to the DJ. The video started without warning, raw footage from Noah's emergency room, grainy but clear, the date and time stamped in the corner. There I was, alone in the waiting area, my face etched with worry, pacing under fluorescent lights. The empty chairs beside me stood out starkly, meant for family, but vacant. The camera panned to Noah's tiny form on the gurney tubes, and monitors attached, his eyes closed in sedation. Guests gasped, hands covering mouths. "That's her son's surgery," a relative murmured. The video looped a clip of me checking my phone, tears in my eyes, intercut with the timestamp matching Mom and Dad's brunch post. The room fell silent, a heavy hush descending like a curtain. No clinking glasses, no laughter, just stunned faces reflecting in the candlelight. Cameras from guests' phones and the professional videographer captured it all, lenses zooming on Mom and Dad's reactions. Dad's face reddened, his mouth opening and closing without sound, while Mom gripped the table edge, her knuckles white, tears of rage or shame welling up. Emily's eyes widened, her hand flying to her mouth. Michael steady beside her. An aunt in the front row whispered loudly. "They weren't there." Cousins exchanged shocked glances. Phones held high to record the unfolding drama. The silence stretched, broken only by the video's faint beeps amplifying the absence, the betrayal. I stood at the side, my pulse thundering, watching the truth land like a bombshell. Guests' expressions shifted from confusion to outrage, eyes flicking between the screen and my parents. A family friend shook his head, murmuring, "Unbelievable." The videographer panned the room, capturing the collective gasp, the way the joy drained from faces. Mom tried to stand, her voice cracking. This is a misunderstanding, but it was lost in the void of silence. The screen froze on the empty chairs, a damning image that spoke volumes. The MC cleared his throat, microphone limp in his hand, the envelope forgotten as the revelation hung heavy. Then the fiancé played a second recording, one I had never heard. The silence in the wedding hall was deafening, the image of those empty hospital chairs still burning on the screen, as my parents' faces crumpled under the weight of exposed truth. I'm Sarah Thompson, 38. A freelance graphic designer standing on the edge of a revelation that had already shaken the room. The $1 bill and note. "This is your priority" had landed like a grenade, and the ER footage had detonated it, leaving guests stunned and cameras rolling. I stood frozen, heart pounding, as Michael caught my eye, his subtle nod signaling something more was coming. The DJ, Jake, didn't hesitate. As the MC fumbled to regain control, Jake's voice cut through, calm but deliberate. "We have one more message from the family," he announced, his fingers swift on the laptop. A new audio file began, and Mom's voice filled the hall, chillingly familiar, yet laced with a menace I hadn't heard before. "Michael, we need to keep things smooth," she said, her tone clipped. "If Sarah makes a fuss about the wedding, we can send Noah to his dad's parents for a few weeks. It'll keep her quiet. Let Emily shine." Gasps rippled through the crowd, heads turning toward Mom, who sat rigid, her eyes wide with panic. The recording continued, her voice dropping lower. "And if she resists, we've got the inheritance fund. Use it to handle things, pay someone, whatever it takes." The words hung like smoke, implying bribes, or worse, to silence me, to prioritize their image over my son's well-being. The room seemed to hold its breath, the weight of her words sinking in. Guests leaned forward, some clutching their glasses, others whispering in shock. A cousin muttered inheritance fund, while an uncle shook his head, disbelief etched on his face. The videographer's camera panned to Mom and Dad, capturing Mom's trembling hands and Dad's clenched jaw, their perfect facade shattered. I stood at the side, my chest tight, tears pricking my eyes, not from sadness but from the raw power of the truth unfolding. Michael's hand rested on Emily's, his face steady, but hers was a mask of horror, her eyes darting from the speakers to our parents. Emily rose slowly, her wedding gown shimmering under the lights, but her face was pale, lips trembling. "Mom," she whispered, voice breaking loud enough for nearby tables to hear. "You'd send Noah away." "For my wedding." The pain in her question cut through the air, and guests turned, their murmurs growing. Emily's realization hit like a wave. She'd been complicit in their world, blind to how far they'd go to maintain appearances. "You didn't tell me," she said louder now, tears streaming. "You let me think you were supporting Sarah, but you were planning this." She gestured toward the speakers, her voice cracking with betrayal. The crowd's eyes followed, some filming, others frozen in shock, the moment raw and unfiltered. I stayed silent, letting the recording do the talking. Mom tried to stand, her voice shrill. "It's not what it sounds like," she cried, but the guests' faces told a different story. Disgust, pity, outrage. Dad remained seated, his head bowed, unable to meet the room's gaze. The audio looped once more, Mom's words about handling me, echoing each repetition a nail in their coffin. My tears fell now, not for them, but for Noah, for the love he deserved from family who'd chosen image over him. Emily's eyes met mine, her expression a mix of guilt and awakening, as if seeing our parents' true colors for the first time. She stepped toward me, but before she could speak, the MC tried to intervene, his voice shaky. "Let's, move on to the toasts," he stammered, but no one listened. The room too gripped by the unfolding drama. The cameras kept rolling, guests' phones capturing every angle. Mom's trembling denial. Dad's silence. Emily's tears. The truth was out, undeniable, and it spoke louder than any defense they could muster. I wiped my eyes, standing tall, the weight of years of neglect lifting as the room saw them for who they were. The moment felt like justice, but it wasn't over. That's when Dad stood, his face red, pointing at me. "You'll pay for this, Sarah. he growled, voice carrying over the hush. "We'll sue you for emotional damages." Dad's threat to sue me for emotional damages hung in the air like a storm cloud, the wedding hall still reeling from the second tape's damning revelation. I'm Sarah Thompson, 38, a freelance graphic designer standing tall amidst the wreckage of my parents' exposed lies. The audio of Mom plotting to sideline Noah for Emily's wedding image had left the guests' stunned cameras capturing every gasp, and Emily's tearful realization had shifted the room's heart. I wiped my eyes, bracing for what came next, knowing the truth was now a wildfire I couldn't control. The reception hall buzzed with whispers, the chandeliers casting fractured light over tables littered with half-eaten desserts. Mom and Dad huddled at their table, their faces a mix of rage and desperation, whispering furiously to each other. Guests glanced their way, some shaking their heads, others filming discreetly the weight of the exposed plan to handle me settling like dust. I stood near the side, my pulse steady but my mind racing the evidence recordings, bank statements safe in my purse. Then a man in a cheap suit approached his tie, slightly askew, a manila envelope in hand. "Sarah Thompson," he said, voice loud enough to draw eyes. "I'm representing your parents. This is a cease and desist letter for defamation." The word defamation cut through the murmurs and heads turned. He thrust the letter at me, a flimsy document typed in haste accusing me of spreading false narratives to harm their reputation. Dad stood arms crossed, glaring. "You've gone too far," he said. "We'll take this to court." I took the letter, my hands steady, and skimmed it. It was amateurish, full of vague legal jargon likely drafted by a family friend posing as a lawyer. "You're suing me," I said loud enough for nearby guests to hear. "For showing the truth," Mom chimed in, her voice shrill. "You humiliated us, Sarah. That video, those lies, it's slander." Her accusation drew gasps, but I held my ground. Lies. The footage is real. The recordings are real. The man in the suit faltered, clearly unprepared for pushback. Guests leaned closer, sensing the drama escalating, their phones still recording. Before I could respond further, a voice cut through the tension. "Hold on a minute." It was Mrs. Clara, the church treasurer, a stout woman in her 60s with a no-nonsense demeanor known for her meticulous records and sharp tongue. She stepped forward from a nearby table, her silver hair catching the light. "Sarah's not the one you should be worried about," she said, addressing the room but staring at Mom and Dad. The crowd quieted, drawn to her authority. "I've known this family for decades, and I've seen things." She turned to me, her eyes kind but firm. "Sarah, I was at the church office last week going through old donation records. I have something to say." My heart skipped. Clara's presence was unexpected, but her tone suggested she was on my side. "Go ahead," I said, nodding. She faced the guests, her voice steady. "I found records of donations your parents made to the church, generous ones they claimed for community projects. But the funds didn't come from their savings." She paused, letting the weight settle. "They came from an inheritance trust. Ellen's trust meant for Sarah and Emily and their kids. They donated thousands to boost their standing, to get their names on plaques while Sarah struggled." The room erupted in murmurs, guests exchanging shocked looks. Clara pulled out a folded paper from her purse, a printout of ledger entries. "I've got the dates, the amounts. It's all here." Mom's face went ashen, her hand clutching Dad's arm. "That's not true," she cried, but her voice wavered, unconvincing. Dad's glare faltered, his shoulders slumping as Clara held up the paper for all to see. "You used your mother's legacy for clout," Clara said, her voice cutting, "while your daughter begged for help with her son's care." The accusation landed like a hammer, guests whispering furiously, some nodding in support. A cousin filmed Clara's speech, the camera catching Mom's trembling denial. I stood, silent gratitude and vindication washing over me. Clara's evidence tied directly to the bank's discovery, another crack in their facade. I turned to the man in the suit holding up the cease and desist letter. You want to talk defamation? Take this to court. I've got recordings, bank statements, and now Clara's records. Everything's backed up. My voice was calm, but firm, the weight of evidence giving me strength. The man stammered, glancing at Dad, who avoided his eyes. Guests watched riveted as the power shifted. I'd saved every file, Michael's audio bank documents, screenshots stored securely in the cloud, and on a USB in my purse. If they wanted a fight, I was ready. Emily, still at the head table, watched in silence, her face pale, tears dried, but eyes wide with realization. The room's energy was electric, the truth now a shared weapon. Then my sister took off her veil and asked for a microphone. Emily's hand trembled as she removed her veil. Her request for the microphone slicing through the charged silence left by Clara's revelation about our parents' misuse of Grandma Ellen's inheritance. I'm Sarah Thompson, 38, a freelance graphic designer standing in the wreckage of my parents' crumbling facade, their defamation threat exposed as hollow by the church treasurer's damning evidence. The wedding hall, still buzzing with whispers and pointed glances, felt like a courtroom, and Emily's move signaled a shift that caught even me off guard. The chandeliers cast a soft glow over the reception tables cluttered with wine glasses and half-eaten cake, the air heavy with the scent of roses and tension. Guests leaned forward, their phones lowered, but eyes fixed on Emily as she stepped to the center, her white gown trailing like a beacon. The MC, still rattled from the earlier chaos, handed her the microphone with a hesitant smile. Mom and Dad sat frozen at their table. Mom's face a mask of forced composure, Dad's eyes darting as if searching for an escape. I stood near the side, my heart pounding, unsure what Emily would say, but feeling the weight of her decision in the air. Everyone. Emily began, her voice shaky but clear, echoing through the speakers. I owe you an apology. This day was supposed to be about love, about family, but you've seen things tonight that I didn't want to believe. Her eyes glistened, but she held her head high. The video you saw of Sarah alone in the hospital with Noah, it's real. I've seen the timestamps, the proof. My parents weren't there for my nephew when he needed them most. Gasps rippled through the crowd, relatives exchanging stunned looks, some nodding in support. Emily's voice cracked, but she pressed on. I thought they were supporting us all, but I was wrong. I'm so sorry, Sarah, for not seeing it sooner. Her gaze met mine, raw with guilt and resolve, and I felt a lump in my throat, the sister I loved stepping out of their shadow. Emily paused, gripping the microphone, her eyes scanning the room before settling on Mom and Dad. I've spent my life trying to make them proud, believing their love was enough. But tonight, I see it's conditional, built on appearances. She took a shaky breath, and the guests leaned closer, the silence thick with anticipation. Sarah's always been there for me, even when I didn't deserve it. I remember one night years ago when I was 16. Mom and Dad were fighting, screaming so loud the windows shook. It was pouring rain and I was crying in my room, scared they'd split. Sarah, only 14, climbed onto my bed, soaked from running through the storm to get home from a friend's. She held me, told me we'd be okay, that we were enough for each other. Her voice broke and tears slipped down her cheeks. She was there always when they weren't. The memory hit me hard, vivid and aching. I'd forgotten that night, the way Emily clung to me, her sobs muffled against my wet jacket. Guests murmured, some wiping their eyes, the videographer capturing Emily's trembling hands. Mom tried to stand, her voice weak. Emily, please, this isn't the place, but Emily shook her head, cutting her off. No, Mom. It is. You've had your say for too long. The room buzzed, cameras zooming in, relatives whispering about Emily's defiance. Dad's face was stone, his hands clenched, unable to counter the truth pouring from his golden child. Emily turned to me, her eyes pleading yet fierce. Sarah, she said, her voice steady now. I've let them control me, but not anymore. They owe you an apology for Noah, for everything. If they don't give it, if they keep hiding behind lies. She paused, her gaze locking with mine, the room holding its breath. Will you walk me down the aisle today? Not Dad, not them, you. The question landed like a thunderclap, guests gasping, some clapping softly, others filming the moment. My heart swelled, tears pricking my eyes, not from pain but from the weight of her choice. Emily was breaking free, choosing me, choosing truth over their facade. I nodded, unable to speak, my throat tight with emotion. Mom's face crumpled, her hand reaching for Dad, but he stared at the floor, defeated. Guests watched, riveted, as the power shifted Emily's words, rewriting our family's story. The DJ hovered nearby, ready for the next move, but this moment was hers. I stepped closer, ready to stand by her side, my resolve stronger than ever. The music began again, but this time it wasn't Dad walking with her. Emily's words asking me to walk her down the aisle still echoed in my heart as the wedding hall held its breath. Her microphone confession shifting the ground beneath us all. I'm Sarah Thompson, 38, a freelance graphic designer standing at the edge of a moment where my sister chose truth over our parents' facade. The guests' eyes filled with awe and whispers followed us as the music swelled, signaling the ceremony's restart. My parents' silence, heavy with defeat, was a victory I hadn't dared imagine. But the day wasn't over, and the consequences were just beginning. The reception hall, aglow with candlelight and draped in soft ivory, transformed into a sacred space as the processional music began, a gentle piano melody filling the air. Emily stood at the back, her gown shimmering, her veil now resting on a nearby table, a symbol of her break from tradition. She reached for my hand, her fingers warm and trembling, and then took the arm of Michael's mother, Linda, a kind woman in her 60s with a steady smile. Linda had been a quiet supporter, her eyes warm when she'd hugged me earlier, whispering, "You're doing the right thing." Together, we three formed an unconventional trio, stepping forward as the crowd watched, some standing, others filming their murmurs, a soft hum of admiration and shock. Emily's choice was a statement, a rejection of our parents' control, and I felt a surge of pride, my heart swelling for my sister's courage. Mom and Dad sat at their table, frozen like statues, their faces pale under the chandelier's glow. Mom's hands clutched her napkin, her lips pressed tight while Dad stared at his plate, unable to meet the eyes of relatives whispering around them. "She's walking with Sarah," an aunt murmured, her voice carrying. "Not her father." A cousin leaned to another. "After that video, I wouldn't either." The whispers rippled, a tide of judgment washing over my parents, their carefully crafted image unraveling with each step we took. Guests' phones captured the moment, lenses glinting as they recorded Emily's radiant defiance, her head high, her smile soft but resolute. I squeezed her hand, my own steady despite the adrenaline coursing through me, and Linda gave me a nod, her presence grounding us both. The aisle stretched before us, lined with petals, leading to Michael waiting at the altar, his eyes bright with love and respect. The guests rose, their applause scattered, but growing a wave of support that drowned out the last of Mom's weak protests from earlier. As we walked, Emily whispered, "Thank you, Sarah. I should have stood up sooner." I shook my head, my throat tight. "You're here now. That's enough." The music carried us forward, each step a reclaiming of our bond, a promise that family could mean more than blood, it could mean truth. We reached the altar and I handed Emily to Michael, their hands clasping tightly. Linda and I stepped back, our roles complete, but the weight of the moment lingered, the room alive with the energy of a shift no one could ignore. The ceremony proceeded, vows exchanged under the soft hum of approval, but the whispers continued. Guests glancing at Mom and Dad, whose silence spoke louder than any defense. After the officiant pronounced them married, the crowd erupted in cheers, but the undercurrent of scandal remained, eyes darting to my parents' table. They sat unmoving as relatives leaned away, their disapproval clear. I slipped to the back, needing a moment to breathe, my heart still racing from the walk and the weight of Emily's choice. As the reception transitioned to dancing and toasts, my phone buzzed in my purse, pulling me from the crowd. I stepped into a quiet corner, the screen showing the bank's number. My pulse quickened. Karen, the fraud prevention officer, had promised updates on the account freeze. "Sarah, we've found more," she said, her voice urgent. Your parents made withdrawals from another linked account, an old education fund in your name set up by your grandmother. Over $10,000 pulled out in the last year, redirected to their personal investments. My breath caught the betrayal deepening. Another fund. Another theft siphoned while I scraped by for Noah's care. We've flagged it as unauthorized. Karen continued. The evidence is solid bank statements, transfer records. It's ready if you need it for legal action. I thanked her, my mind reeling, the papers in my purse, now a growing arsenal. The reception swirled on music and laughter, a distant hum as I processed the call. My parents' greed had no bounds, their lies stretching back years, tainting even Grandma's memory. I glanced at them across the room, their faces stiff as they whispered to a lone supporter oblivious to the bank's discovery. The consequences were piling up, and I knew this was only the start. That night, a sheriff's cruiser slowed in front of my parents' house. The sight of the sheriff's cruiser slowing in front of my parents' house that night lingered in my mind, a quiet signal that their world was unraveling further. I'm Sarah Thompson, 38, a freelance graphic designer standing firm as the fallout from Emily's wedding, where she chose me to walk her down the aisle, rippled outward. The bank's revelation about my parents' unauthorized withdrawals from my education fund had added another layer to their betrayal. And as I drove home from the venue, I braced myself for what came next, knowing the community's eyes were now wide open. The days following the wedding brought a deluge of letters, their envelopes piling up on my kitchen counter like fallen leaves. The first came from our church's pastor, a kind but stern man, who'd known us since childhood. Sarah, he wrote, your parents' actions have grieved us. Their absence during Noah's surgery and misuse of funds are not the values we uphold. We pray they seek repentance. Similar notes arrived from neighbors Mrs. Larson across town, who'd baked cookies for Noah, and the Hendersons, who'd always admired Mom's charity work. We're disappointed, one letter read, to learn their generosity was funded by deceit. Please let them make this right. Each letter was a blow to their reputation. A community they'd courted with smiles and donations now turning away. I read them in silence, my heart heavy but resolute. Noah's laughter from his bedroom a reminder of why I'd fought. But the community's response went beyond letters. A week after the wedding, a post appeared on the neighborhood's online forum shared by Mrs. Evelyn Carter, Grandma Ellen's best friend, a wiry 75-year-old with a penchant for truth. Her letter, titled Ellen's Legacy Betrayed, was a bombshell. Ellen Thompson left an inheritance for her grandchildren, Sarah, Emily, and their children, she wrote. I helped her draft the trust meant for education and care, but her daughter and son-in-law diverted it for personal gain, leaving Sarah to struggle alone. She attached scanned documents, trust excerpts, bank transfer stubs, confirming thousands moved to my parents' accounts disguised as investments. The post spread like wildfire, racking up comments. Shameful Ellen would be heartbroken. I sat at my laptop stunned as neighbors shared stories of Mom's boasts about her charitable contributions now exposed as stolen from us. Evelyn's public letter, pinned to the top of the forum, was a clarion call stripping away the last of their polished image. Emily and Michael, meanwhile, made a move that caught me by surprise. At the reception's end, Michael had taken the microphone, his voice steady. In lieu of gifts, he'd announced we're starting a fund for children needing surgeries like Noah. No family should face that alone. Guests had applauded, some pledging on the spot, and by the next day, Emily texted me a link to the fund's page already at $5,000. This is for you, Sarah, she wrote. I'm sorry I didn't see it all before. I cried reading it, not just for the gesture, but for her heart finally free from our parents' grip. The fund was a beacon turning the wedding's chaos into something hopeful, a legacy of care that contrasted sharply with Mom and Dad's selfishness. I sat on my couch, Noah asleep upstairs, weighing my next steps. The amateur lawyer's cease and desist letter from the wedding felt like a hollow threat, now dwarfed by the evidence piling against them. Recordings, bank records, Clara's church ledgers, Evelyn's post. Part of me wanted to countersue, to drag them through court for every cent they'd taken, every moment they'd failed Noah. but I hesitated. A lawsuit would prolong the pain, tie me to their toxicity longer. Instead, I archived everything, digital copies in the cloud, physical documents in a locked box under my bed. I was ready if they pushed, but I wouldn't strike first. Cutting contact felt cleaner, a line drawn in the sand. I blocked their numbers, deleted their emails unopened, and instructed my sitter to turn them away if they showed up. Noah deserved a life free of their shadow. The community's rejection was punishment enough for now. Neighbors stopped inviting them to events. The church removed their names from the donor wall. Each snub was a consequence, a mirror reflecting their choices. I felt a quiet vindication, not joy, but a sense of justice settling in. Emily called daily, her voice lighter, promising to visit Noah soon. Michael sent updates on the fund, now nearing $10,000. Life was shifting the ground, steadying beneath me. Then a certified letter arrived addressed to me, notice of intent to sue. The certified letter. Notice of intent to sue sat heavy on my kitchen counter, a final jab from my parents after the community's rejection had stripped their reputation bare. I'm Sarah Thompson, 38, a freelance graphic designer anchored by Noah's recovery and Emily's newfound loyalty, yet bracing for the courtroom battle ahead. The wedding's fallout, amplified by Mrs. Carter's public letter and the fund Emily and Michael started, had left Mom and Dad cornered, their threats now a desperate bid to save face. I clutched my evidence folder, ready to face them one last time. The courtroom was small, a municipal building in downtown Ohio with worn wooden benches and a faint, musty smell. I sat on one side, my navy blazer pressed, but my nerves frayed, the weight of months of betrayal pressing against my chest. Mom and Dad sat across the aisle with their lawyer, a family friend named Gary, whose rumpled suit and nervous fidgeting betrayed his inexperience. They'd filed for defamation, claiming I'd humiliated them with false accusations at the wedding. The gallery held a few familiar faces. Mrs. Carter, Clara from the church, and a neighbor, all there to support me. Their presence a quiet strength. The judge, a stern woman in her 50s with sharp eyes, called the session to order, her gavel a crisp echo in the room. Gary stood clearing his throat and presented their case with shaky confidence. Sarah Thompson spread malicious lies, he said, holding up a typed affidavit. She fabricated stories about her parents' absence and manipulated audio to ruin their reputation. He submitted blurry screenshots of social media comments and a doctored bank statement showing their accounts as stable. Mom nodded tearfully, playing the victim, while Dad stared ahead, jaw tight. I listened, my hands steady on my folder, knowing their evidence was a house of cards. My pro bono attorney, a young woman named Lisa from a local legal aid clinic, rose calmly. Your Honor, their claims are baseless, she said, her voice clear. We have verifiable evidence refuting each point. Lisa methodically dismantled their case. First, the hospital video time-stamped, authenticated by the facility, showing the empty chairs during Noah's surgery. This isn't fabricated, she said, projecting it on a small courtroom screen. The judge leaned forward, her expression unreadable but attentive. Next, the audio of Mom's call to Michael, verified by metadata, played clearly. Don't tell the bride. Gary objected, claiming it was edited, but Lisa countered with a forensic report confirming its integrity. Then the bank records, Karen's statements detailing unauthorized withdrawals from my college account, and the education fund cross-referenced with Mrs. Carter's trust documents. These show funds meant for Sarah and her son were diverted, Lisa said, handing over printouts. Clara's ledger detailing church donations from the inheritance sealed the case. Gary's objections faltered, his papers trembling as the judge reviewed each piece. Mom tried to interject, her voice shrill. We were helping the family, she claimed, but the judge silenced her with a raised hand. You've had your turn, she said sternly. Dad's affidavit alleging I'd orchestrated a smear campaign crumbled when Lisa presented guest testimonies from the wedding confirming the event's authenticity. The judge's pen scratched notes, her face a mask of focus. After an hour, she leaned back, her gaze sweeping the room. This suit is dismissed, she declared, her voice firm. The evidence overwhelmingly supports Ms. Thompson's account. There's no basis for defamation when the claims are true. A murmur rippled through the gallery, Clara nodding in approval. The judge continued, her tone softening slightly. I urge this family to seek reconciliation. But Ms. Thompson, your resilience and forthrightness in presenting this evidence are commendable. She turned to my parents. Based on the bank records and trust documents, I'm ordering the return of the misappropriated inheritance funds to Sarah Thompson to be managed for her and her son's benefit. Mom gasped, her hand clutching Dad's while he stared at the floor, defeated. The ruling was a lifeline, a restoration of what Grandma Ellen intended, and I felt a weight lift my heart steady despite the tears pricking my eyes. As the courtroom cleared, Mom approached, her face a mix of desperation and performance. Sarah, let's put this behind us, she said, her voice syrupy. We're family. We can start over. Her words were hollow, a last-ditch effort to salvage control, but I saw through them. No, Mom. I said, my voice calm but unyielding. Family doesn't steal from family. I'm done. I turned away, her pleas fading as I walked toward the exit, Lisa at my side, her smile proud. The victory was mine, won with truth and poise, but the scars remained. On the steps, Emily waited, her eyes soft with gratitude. She pressed something small and cool into my palm, a silver locket. Emily's hand lingered on mine as she pressed the silver locket into my palm on the courthouse steps, her eyes reflecting a quiet strength born from the trial's resolution. I'm Sarah Thompson, 38, a freelance graphic designer, finally free from my parents' shadow after the judge's ruling restored Grandma Ellen's inheritance and affirmed my truth. The courtroom victory was a hard-won peace, but as I stood there, the locket's cool weight promised something deeper, a healing I hadn't dared hope for. Noah was safe, my sister was with me, and the future felt like ours to shape. Back home that evening, I sat at my kitchen table, the locket glinting under the soft glow of a lamp. Noah was asleep upstairs, his steady breathing a melody through the monitor. I opened the locket carefully, my fingers trembling. Inside was a tiny photo of Noah's hand. His newborn fingers curled in my palm from years ago, delicate and perfect. Tucked beside it, a folded note in Emily's handwriting. You came first. My breath caught tears welling as the words sank in. Emily had chosen us, me and Noah, over the facade our parents built. The locket was her promise, a symbol of our rebuilt bond, and I clutched it to my chest, letting the tears fall, not from pain, but from gratitude. The quiet of the night called for reflection, and I pulled out a notebook, feeling a need to anchor this moment for the future. I began writing a letter to myself to be opened in 30 years, when Noah might have a child of his own. A daughter, I imagined, who'd need to know our story. Dear Sarah, I wrote, my pen steady despite the emotions swirling. You fought for Noah when no one else did. You stood up to lies, to greed, and won back what was yours. The inheritance fund stolen by those who should have loved you is now Noah's, his education, his dreams secured by the judge's order. Hold fast to this truth. Love means sacrifice, not control. I paused, picturing a future where Noah's daughter might read this, her eyes tracing the words of a grandmother who chose family over pride. The letter felt like a bridge, passing down the values Grandma Ellen had lived by: honesty, resilience, love, without strings. I sealed the letter, my heart full but heavy with the weight of what we'd endured. I gathered a small wooden box from my shelf, one Grandma Ellen had given me as a child, carved with simple daisies. Into it, I placed the letter, its pages crisp with purpose. Next, a war coin gleaming in the lamplight, a nod to the envelope that sparked this reckoning, a reminder of where it all began. Then, Noah's hospital bracelet, its tiny plastic band faded, but precious, a relic of his fight and my resolve. The box was a time capsule, a testament to our survival, meant for the next generation to understand the cost of truth and the power of choosing what matters. Life settled into a new rhythm in the weeks that followed, Emily and Michael visited often, their laughter filling my small apartment. As Noah played with blocks, his strength growing daily. The fund they'd started for children's surgeries had swelled neighbors and strangers alike, contributing, turning our pain into hope for others. My parents faded from my world, their calls blocked, their presence unwelcome. Emily, too, had drawn a line, her visits to them brief and guarded. We were a new family, small, imperfect, but sufficient. Sunday dinners with Emily, Michael, and Noah became our ritual, their chatter a balm to old wounds. Linda, Michael's mother, joined us sometimes, her warm hugs a reminder that family could be chosen, not just born. I looked at Noah, giggling as Emily built a tower for him to topple, and felt a peace I hadn't known in years. The locket hung around my neck, a quiet anchor, its note a promise I'd keep. The inheritance, now in a trust for Noah, was more than money, it was Grandma's legacy reclaimed. And if they ever ask me again for money, I'll send another $1 along with the only truth that ever mattered: we chose the child. If this story of standing up for family and fighting for what's right moved you, hit that subscribe button to join our community and catch more stories of resilience and truth. Your thoughts matter. Drop a comment below and tell us, have you ever faced a family betrayal like this? How would you have handled it? Let's get the conversation going and keep the truth alive.